Hi, my name is David Casino, and welcome to this video series on building apps using AI. I've been developing software for 24 years, and yes, the tools have gotten better over the ages, but never in my life have I seen the productivity gains that are possible using AI to develop software. In this video series, we're going to be building an app from scratch, from the ground up, using AI. We're not only going to use AI to help build the app, we're going to use AI inside the app to handle some of the business logic. Are you ready? Let's get started. All right, before we get started, let's look at some of the tools that are available for building apps with AI. The first one that I became aware of was GitHub's Copilot. And so this is a plugin that goes directly into Visual Studio Code, and it uses AI to help you code faster. So it does things like auto completion. You can ask it to generate code for you. I haven't really used it much, to be honest, but I've heard good things. There's other tools like Claude, which help you do the same thing. But what I'm going to be using in this series is something called Cursor. Cursor is essentially Visual Studio Code, which is a very popular integrated development environment, but they've forked it, so they've created a copy of it, and they've plugged in large language models at their core. Now, there's been a lot of hype around this, so before I started recording videos or any of that, I wanted to test out, is this possible? So about 3 weeks ago, I created an app. It just got approved by Apple. It's in the App Store. It's called Calorie Talk. And I'll give you a quick demo of it now. So if you can see my screen, I'm going to launch this on my local machine. And it's going to deploy this to a website, basically, on my local machine. So we can kind of preview what the functionality is. I'm using Flutter, and Flutter is a tool that lets you develop apps that will run both on Android, iOS, and also web, which is really handy. You don't have to write your software 3 different times. You can just build it in Flutter, and it'll work on all these different platforms. So the idea of Calorie Talk is I built this app for myself, trying to lose some weight, and it helps you track your calorie intake. And I've used calorie trackers before, but they've been very cumbersome for me. You have to, look things up, try to find stuff. It just takes a lot of time to actually input the data and have it track your calories. So I really like using voice. So I wanted to create a voice-powered calorie tracker. And you can see here, this is my actual food intake. Don't judge. And there's basically a giant record button. So if I hit this button, I can start talking and just record my meals. So let's say I just went to McDonald's and I had a Big Mac, fries and a Coke. Big Mac, fries, and a Coke. Now you can see it's doing some voice to text on the device. And when it's done, it estimates the number of calories in that meal. It adds it to my list, and it automatically adjusts the calorie intake that I had over time. I'm also tracking basal metabolism rates. This is how many calories you're burning just existing, just breathing, respirating, maintaining your bodily functions. And over time, it'll add that onto any workouts you do, and then it calculates your calorie balance. You can see here, it's added the item to my list, Big Mac, fries, and a Coke. It's given me an estimated calorie, and it's also logged the time of when I had that meal. And you can see this fasting indicator is saying how long I've been fasting. So I've been fasting for 36 seconds. You can also adjust the different items. Let's say I know for a fact, maybe this is 1,180 calories. I can adjust it. It'll save the changes and update all the numbers automatically. Now, I built this app from beginning to it being approved in the App Store in 3 weeks. Within a week, I had a kind of crappy prototype. I spent another week polishing it, adding little features, cleaning things up. And it took about a week for Apple to approve it. You have to go back and forth and make sure it complies with all of their policies. Now that we have Calorie Talk open, you get a quick preview of what the app can do. Let's take a look at Cursor a little bit to see what kind of features it has. So I'm going to kill that app. And one of the great things about Cursor that I found in the 3 weeks that I've been using it is that you can use it to kind of interrogate. You can ask questions about your code base. So let's say you're working at a big company or a small company or just on your own project, and you get dropped into a new code base. You haven't worked with this code before, and you just want to understand what it does. Cursor has this cool feature called Composer. So if I hit Command I can pull up this little window here, and I can just say, I can ask it whatever I want. I can say, what does this app do? All right, so it's going to go through, it's going to use an LLM. I'm currently using Claude 3.5 Sonnet, which is an LLM. It's really good for coding. And it just goes through. It's like, all right, you got a dashboard. The main screen of the app displays a number of the user's calorie intake and expenditure. It's got speech to text. It uses AI to estimate calories. Pretty good, right? I mean, it really gives you an idea of all the different features, um, data persistence, everything. I can ask it, let's say I'm asked, I want to build a new feature, or someone asked me to build a new feature if I'm working at a company, and they want to add a visualizer. So when you're speaking into the voice to text, this is actually a feature I do want to add. I want to have a little, almost like a synthesizer, like a waveform type thing. So as you're talking, the little bars go up and down to indicate some visual feedback that the app's actually listening to you. Um, I want to add a feature that visualizes my voice using a waveform. How might I do this? Now, you have to be very careful using Composer because it can change multiple files in your app at the same time. I highly recommend making sure you check your code into Git or whatever source code tracking tool that you're using. So that way, if Cursor messes up or you mess up, you can always go back to a point where you know the app was good and everything was working. Cursor, it gets a little crazy sometimes, and you can kind of mess things up. So it's always good to be able to fall back to a point where you know things are good. So I'm going to say, hey, I want to add a feature that visualizes my voice using a waveform. How might I do this? I'm going to actually tell it, do not modify any code. Just give me some steps to follow. All right, so I'm going to type that in. It's going to talk to the LLM, and boom, here we go. To add a voice visualization feature using a waveform to your app, you can follow these general steps. Choose a waveform visualization package. There we go, audio waveforms. There's a Flutter package. Add that to my PubSpec YAML, create a new widget, integrate with speech recognition. This is great. It gives me some practical steps I can follow to start modifying my app. Okay, that's just a little taste of how you can use Cursor with an existing app, an existing code base, to add a new feature, fix a bug. But that's not what we're going to be doing in this video series. We're going to be building an app from the ground up, from scratch, and we're going to get started in the next video.